All right, we have been talking about this story that is a Bloomberg exclusive. Pimco, BlackRock, and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York are seeking to force Bank of America to repurchase soured mortgages packaged into $47 billion worth of bonds by its Countrywide Financial unit. This, according to people familiar with the matter. Joining us on the phone to talk about this is Fred Tecce, attorney at McShea Tecce in Philadelphia. He is a former U.S. attorney and has handled business litigation for more than 20 years. And Fred, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me.
Let me first point out, or let me ask you, as someone who has a lot of experience with securities litigation, we see a huge number here. $47 billion is obviously a massive amount. Do you see often that plaintiffs will start out with a giant number hoping to come to something that's at least a fraction of that in a settlement?
It happens all the time. I mean, that's like law school 101. The plaintiffs ask for $47 billion and then turn around and take, a fraction of a penny on the dollar. And in this case, I think it's even worse. I mean, they're turning around to BOA and saying, pay $47 billion, and BOA saying, hey, wait a minute, whoa. We're not obligated for the whole $47 billion. Maybe there were loans that were problems, and maybe Countrywide made some mistakes or things weren't done properly. But, in essence, what these guys have done is they've just called up and said, hey, guess what? We're not going to waste time with the lawyers in the justice system, and we're not going to deal with the debtor, and we're not going to deal with the trustee. Why don't you just stroke us a check for $47 billion, and we'll be on our happy way?
And, Fred, and that's the difference. I mean, this isn't a lawsuit, and this is, again, according to people familiar, all of this that's going on. It's a legal letter. I mean, talk to us. How often do we see this kind of maneuvering?
You know what? For years, Carol, people have come to me and said, why don't you write them a letter, and that'll scare them into paying. And when I write a letter, unfortunately, it never does. Now, when the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and BlackRock and Pimco write a letter, maybe it's got a little bit more teeth in it. But ultimately, if I'm BOA, I'm going to draw a line in the sand and say, wait a minute, bring it on. Because in our justice system, you got to prove up your losses. You have to establish that you're entitled to the $47 billion. And quite frankly, the way our system works is that people like BOA are protected because we have laws and we have procedures and we have routes to go. And you just don't get $47 billion by sending checks out, sending out letters.
I'd
have gotten it a long time ago if that was true.
Well, so Fred, is that the logical next step? I mean, do you anticipate that this turns into a lawsuit at this point?
Well, I'm sure that's what's going to happen. This is a prelude to it. I mean, about a month ago, BNY Mellon, who was the trustee on this debt, was asked to investigate this. They refused at the time. And I think what you're seeing is that these guys are trying to set this thing up to bring in a lawsuit. Once again, as I always say, it'll be the Lawyers Fair Employment Act until this ultimately gets resolved.
I wonder, Brian Moynihan says that a lot of these claims don't have the defects that people allege, and he says a lot of times what ends up happening at Bank of America is they restore them and they go straight back into the pools. How hard is this kind of thing to prove? Because Pimco, the Fed, BlackRock are saying that the servicers aren't doing their job as far as these mortgages.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. In order for Pimco and BlackRock and these guys to prevail, they have to show that somehow Countrywide didn't do what they were supposed to, and that BOA should be made to pay. And the way our system works is that you have to prove that. Now, in the scenario which you just described, under that instance and in connection with those groups of loans, BOA wouldn't be obligated to pay. So what kind of jumps out at me about this is that it's just like, we're not going to worry about our proofs. We're not going to worry about the evidence. Just, send the cash over. And BOA is obviously bristling at that, and I don't blame them.
Pimco, BlackRock, the Fed, they're not stupid people. I mean, why do you think that they're doing potentially this maneuver? I mean, do they really think BofA is just going to fold so easily?
No, Carol, I don't think that you're absolutely right. They are stupid, and I don't think that they anticipate that.
No. I said they're not stupid. So
yeah, they are stupid. No, I agree with you. They are not stupid in any way, shape, or form. I misspoke. I agree with you on that one. But I also think what they're doing is that they're trying to set this thing up so that it can move forward. I mean, they know that BOA is not going to send them a check, but civil litigation, even securities litigation, I've said this for years, is about increasing the risk. And so this is the first step by three, and you're right, very smart groups of individuals who are trying to back BOA into a position where the risk gets too great for them to go forward, and they need to come to the table.
They want to draw a settlement. Interesting to point out once again that BlackRock is the third biggest shareholder. So BlackRock is trying to back its own company essentially into a corner, playing kind of both sides of this. Do you have any experience with kind of conflicts of interest issues in this kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I got all kinds of them, and you know I could regale you with stories over plenty of beers as to whether or not there's conflicts. But you've hit the nail on the head, because here's BlackRock, who owns a significant, who owns a not insubstantial amount of BOA stock. But ultimately, I think with BlackRock, I can look at it and say, if I'm BlackRock, I don't want them to fail, because I've got too much of a vested interest in making sure that they don't fail, and therefore I'm trying. We've joined into this thing because we want to get this thing resolved in such a way that BOA is going to be able to continue to stay in existence.
Got it, Fred. Okay, I'll take you up on those beers next time you're up here in New York.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Fred Tecce, there from Philadelphia.